President Trump, he promised big changes to come to the economy once he takes office. Join us now with what to expect in 2025. Is Liz Pancotti is the director at the Roosevelt Institute, and Veronique de Rugy is a senior research fellow at the Mercatus Center. And I guess usually when we have these segments, Liz, we are going to get to tariffs eventually. So why don't we just start with that? Negotiating ploy, inflationary, is a good thing or bad thing?
I think you have an issue where Trump is signaling to the market, to CEOs, to other countries that he's going to do the sweeping tariffs he campaigned on. And to some extent, they're not believing him. And even members of his cabinet and senior advisors are saying, no, it won't be what you think it is. And so I'm curious to see exactly what they do. But I think here in the first 100 days, there will be some pretty sweeping tariffs rather than this targeted and strategic tariffs we've seen over the past 2 years and even from the first Trump administration. I think the big question you have is, are they going to go after de minimis, where you see Customs Border Protection going after a bunch of small packages that could really hit Americans' pocketbooks, which would be a good thing for American manufacturers, but ultimately could really place inflationary pressures throughout our economy if the sweeping tariffs he's proposing on China and even our friends, Canada and Mexico and others, are put in place.
But Veronique, your thoughts on that? Similar?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't see how he's not doing it. And I also agree that his cabinet and people around him are trying to reassure everyone around that, no, it's just a way to get lower tariffs around the world. But we're going to see. I mean, he's promised his base is very pro-tariff, I assume, because they've been told how great it's going to make things. And also, like, when you look at member of his cabinets, it's actually interesting. It's a very different cabinet. Some of his picks are more traditional, but there are also a lot of guys who have openly written about all the great stuff you can do with tariffs. So I think we're going to see tariffs. Yeah, I mean, we're going to see sweeping tariffs, and it's going to be interesting to see which of the Trump tariff theory we get.
Veronique, are we as deficit and debt conscious as we're going to get? Or, I mean, if he extends the tax cuts and some of these other things, does it ever become actually where it's almost impossible? It's almost an obstacle to moving forward because the debt is just so big. Or do we never get there? Can we just keep, we can always print?
Well, I mean, I hope that the Republicans are going to keep some of their commitments, especially in the House, to do a lot of offsets for the extension of the tax cuts. But I worry that the political reality is going to make it so hard. I mean, they don't have a lot of power. Like, they don't have a very small margin in the House. And you know what that means? It means they're going to have to negotiate. They can't lose any Republicans. And it's very possible they're going to end up having to negotiate with Democrats. And that means what? That means that for the tax cuts that they're going to get without offset, they're going to actually get Democrats to pay for them for more spending. And I mean, hopefully some of the tax cuts are very pro-growth, especially the one on capital. But I think it's going to grow the spending. And if the Doge and these guys can't convince Congress to follow suit and cut spending, we're getting in dangerous territory. And let's not forget, inflation is not back to target. In fact, it's ticking up. The economy is growing, and real wages are going up. I mean, and these are just. I think it's dicey out there.
Liz, you would, I think, even be more definitive. You think that some of these policies, in your view, while promising to deliver a great economic boom, will blow a hole in a strong but fragile economy. Is that your view?
I think that's right. I think we have like a stack of mismatched plates that are okay for now, and you are looking at dropping the entire stack of plates and shattering all over the floor. I mean, as Veronique was saying, we have a strong but fragile labor market. We have inflation that's ticking up in a way that is, I think, mildly concerning. I wasn't surprised to see the Fed cut and wouldn't be surprised to see a pause going into Q1. But I think we have a really fragile economy, one that looks okay on paper, but the minute you lift up the hood, it's not great. To go back to your first question to Veronique, we're talking about Trump has proposed $10 trillion in tax changes on the campaign trail, between making the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act permanent and, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. I'm not sure we're taxing anything at this point based on what he's proposed. $10 trillion is not something you can recover from, both from a debt and deficit standpoint and from an inflationary perspective. That is, 3 times what the Biden administration spent on the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act. That is, 4 to 5 CARES Act programs in a non-crisis scenario. And I think the inflationary pressures, even if they're pro-growth, which I don't think they will be based on what's being proposed, I think we're looking at both the economic crisis and a huge hole in a strong but fragile economy.